Hey guys, another giving convo story with two of my absolute favorite people. Have been best friends for a minute. Huge part of our church, part of our family, and so thankful they take some time to talk about kind of their giving journey and their story when it comes to generosity and tithing and all the words we don't always love talking about. But I love their story and I love what God's done in them, and so I wanted to just get them in front of you guys. And if you're watching this pre November 13th, 2022, we are on our way up to Vision Builder Sunday. And really excited about what that day is for us as a church, as we unite in heart and hand in our giving towards the future of our church together. And so these are the reason we're doing this is to not just ask of you to give, but also to resource you and encourage you and maybe how to make that part of your life. There's resources on our website. If you want to see more about the vision, you can go online and check all of that out. It's all there for you. If you have any questions about this, we'd love to hear from you. So without further ado, Shane and Talisha Sinkville, two of the best. Thank you for jumping on. Give me
Thanks for having
your,
us.
yeah, um, give us your kind of like journey towards this place in your life where giving is a pretty normal, regular thing for you. Before you guys got married, even, what has kind of the journey been for you when it comes to that big word of giving and tithing and generosity in this life of faith? What does that look like for you guys?
I'll go first. So for
Okay.
me, um, I was taught at a very, very young age to tithe, to always give 10%. So like if we ever got allowance, it wasn't like allowance wasn't a regular thing in our household. So but when it was,
Mm,
like we were taught to give 10% of that. And I still remember to this day when my mom was teaching me about tithing in the kitchen, and she was like, out of $1, what would you give? And, like 10 cents. And so to me, I was like, 10 cents, that's nothing. So that's as a little girl was like, I still get 90, like that's nothing. So that just always stuck with me, whether or not I
mm,
was like regular tither or an obedient tither. I always knew that that's what I would do. That was always
mm,
ingrained in me. So whenever I got probably, in my 20s, started doing my own like church journey and walk and stuff like that. It was definitely something I did. I was not as um, disciplined as we are now together, and so I think that's like one huge thing to me is like I would do it, but then if like I was going to be short on a bill, or I didn't have that much money or whatever, I maybe I would skip. And then it wasn't like an automated thing. It was like a write a check and put it in, or whatever way we did it then.
yeah, yeah,
um, and so, yeah, and I always remember at the end of the year, getting back the end of the year statement and being a little bit disappointed in myself because I'm like, that's not 10% of what you made this year. For me, it is. It's pretty bad still. And like, my
yeah,
always be like, you gotta get better, you gotta be better. And so, um, and so that, I think it's really cool because whenever we did get married, like, that definitely changed. Like, we definitely made it a regular,
Yeah.
very
yeah.
disciplined.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was a lot different. I did not know what, before I stepped into C3, I didn't know what tithing was. I've never heard that term in my life. And I remember being in church sometimes and they would pass the plate and you put cash in. And
Oh
that,
yeah, I remember we people used to do that. That's
yeah.
right.
I mean, the
Yeah.
one we would go like twice a year, that's what I remember. I didn't put anything in there. I was a kid, but I didn't know what tithing was. I never heard of it, like I said. And I was always probably skeptical when I first came in of like, you just hear all these things about money in
Hmm.
the church. And so I was definitely skeptical. I was like, oh, here we go. This and that. So I was totally that guy when I first came in. But, I think just kind of my journey is just kind of dipping my toes in and just like kind of like I would give, like she would say, like it wasn't a disciplined thing. It was like a little bit every now if I remembered or if I had the money or if I had
Mhm.
extra money, I would give.
Yeah.
So I think God like kind of just with me is just tiny baby steps. It was
Yeah.
like, okay. And then, so then it just became, you start to not hold money so tightly. You know, I think
Mhm.
I think I'm getting ahead of myself, but like in the beginning, it was just that's what God was teaching you is like
Yeah.
this is money, and it's not like. And I wasn't like a greedy person, and I didn't have like a ton of money, but I was just like, you know, it just made me kind of think about money differently. Think
Yeah.
about,
Yeah.
you know, like I don't, you know, I just feel like I've heard so many messages over the years, but I remember one of like having open hand, and maybe you said this, I'm not sure, but just like having when you have your both hands open, you know, money flows through, and it doesn't, you
Yeah.
don't like hang on to it, you know, you don't stop that blessing from coming. Um, so yeah, I mean that was how it was in the beginning, and then you know obviously it's a lot different now. But
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
journey with that was just dipping my toes in,
Yeah.
and then becoming disciplined about it, and you know that being you know where it's just automatic now, you know,
Yeah.
and it's like
Right.
I can't see doing any other way, you know. What I mean, like I can't see myself not giving now, you know. What I
Yeah.
mean, it's like
Yeah.
it's just so ingrained in me, and
I think
It's
that one really cool thing about with Shane's and even his dad, um, whenever we first started dating, and I was seeing them begin to understand tithing and giving, and what it meant for their relationship with God. It was crazy because when we first started dating, I used to always be like, "Man, you always have days off," and I always thought that was like a like fun, cool thing. Like you and
it's
your own
not a good thing.
business, you always have days off, which I learned like that's not a good thing when they have
that's
days
not
off.
always
That means they
yeah.
don't have work,
Yeah,
right? And so, and I don't even think they ever like think back to this, but it was just like the second that they started like seeing giving as an important thing in their lives, him and his dad,
Mm,
business never slowed down again.
yeah,
Never. And I
wow.
that's very
always
true.
thought that was like the coolest thing just to see how God was like, oh, okay, like I see your faithfulness, so let me like bless you in your business,
Yeah.
the thing that like is so important to you guys.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean,
That's oh, that's really cool.
I don't
Mm,
think I think what you know God works in things that are the unexplained, you know,
yeah.
and it's like
Hmm.
I can't explain why. I mean, I you know I've talked to you about this. We don't market, we don't do anything. Everything we do is word of mouth, and for to have so long of not you know a steady work is in
Yeah.
our business is not common. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And there's no other. You just it's unexplainable.
Yeah.
You know, well it is. You know, I know
It's
what it
God.
is, but like
Right.
you know,
Right.
like it's just yeah. And I you know forget about that sometimes, but you know, just because it's so
That's
automatic now. But like you saying that, you know, it's
Hmm.
very true.
that's awesome. We're having like a moment here. This is no, it is, but it is cool, and I think you don't find very often people who have made giving a regular part of their life and who look back and go, man, I wish I hadn't done that.
Hmm.
And
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
it's true.
I know why we hear words like blessing, and then people go, well, does that mean if I don't do it, I'm cursed? Or like we think
Right.
prosperity gospel, or we think all these things, and I get it, I understand why. But what you guys are saying is that it's just become such a part of regular your overflowing life, your regular life. Can't see any other way of doing it.
Right.
And so in a way, giving has done something to you as much as your giving has done something, right?
Absolutely.
There's
Mhm.
something about the habit and the pattern of giving, like the habit and pattern of prayer, like the habit and
Right.
pattern of fasting or serving or whatever. It does something to you. It
Yeah.
shapes you. It makes you different. And it's this
Yeah.
counter formational thing that God does. So what would you guys say coming from, Shane, your background, and T from your background, which is amazing that your parents taught that. But
Hmm.
there's also a point where at some point you have to own that, like
Oh yeah.
why you're going to continue doing that, why
Hmm.
this is going to matter to you. So why would you guys say, or what has changed about the way you view tithing and giving? How have you come to more fully kind of just get your head around and heart around why you guys do that at this stage in your life?
Well, one thing that comes to my mind is, you know, it we grow up in or we live in like a very transactional society. So it's like
Mm,
if I give, then I want more money back. You know what I mean? Like I'm
right.
investing this money, so automatically I want more money. You know, that's how like
Yeah. What's the ROI on this?
yeah. So that's like
Yeah.
that's the hesitation when and I think it's super important that if you're going to start this journey of tithing or whatever it is, you have to realize that that's not how it works. It's not
Right.
like, oh, I give $10, so I'm going to get 100 next week. It's not how it works. It's not. You might not get any money back, and it's not.
Right.
That's not the goal. So you have to really be aware that it's going to open up doors, and it kind of forces you to look at other doors that aren't money. Like maybe you have to be aware of, it forces you to kind of, well, it doesn't force you, but you do have to make that commitment that like, this isn't about money, it's not about money.
Yeah.
It's not about cash, I mean, and that we live in that kind of society. So I think that's important. When I realized that changed the way I gave. I didn't give because I wanted more money. I gave because I'm being disciplined, I'm being faithful, and I know that God can do way more with it than I can. So that's why I do it, because I believe God can do that. And, that's the why for me,
Yeah, it's definitely like for me, for us, I think it's a big like trust. We trust God with our lives. And that is such a huge part of our lives. That's like how we get by day to day. And whether we have a little or a little bit more, this is never a lot. Right. Like we know like who's ultimately in charge of everything that we do and of our lives. And so to make sure that God knows like, no, we're putting you first. Like no matter what, no matter how circumstances are, like we're going to make sure that God, that we trust you, we have faith in you in our lives, in our circumstances. And I think that giving is just a great action for God to say, okay, you are faithful. And so I think for us, that's why we've stuck to it and why it's become important to us. And we've seen so many great blessings from it. That, like he said before, it's just unexplainable. But that's not why we ultimately do it. And what I love is like, he's the giver, like he's like the very giving personality, he's going to tip the person way more than he should, or, whatever he's in the relationship. And so, I think that shows in the sense of like our giving and tithe to God. Because he's going to be the one that like, no matter what the bank account looks like, we're not going to stop this. We're going to stop, maybe this, or we'll cut back on this, but we're not going to change or budge our giving. If anything, we'll give more, And so it's just become something that we've like made like a solid, like this is going to go first above most things because God goes first above most things.
Yeah, we're sometimes seems to be the opposite, and I get it. I understand why. Well, I could get away with not tithing, and I don't want that to come off like if you do that, God's coming after you like that.
No.
I don't believe that at all. But I do think like that can typically can be like, oh well, I'll just cut back there. And I think God could have the grace. God has grace for all that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That. But I love the kind of the mindset of going, no. In fact, in these moments, I'm going to help myself realize that money does not determine for me who I am. It's the whole treasures in heaven, right? They're different treasures, right? What we treasure on earth is a little different than probably what we'll treasure in heaven. And yet what we're doing when we give and we tithe and we make this regular, we're determining what our treasure really is. And when it gets hard, it's almost even more important that we're determining what our treasure is and what matters most to us. So tell me, I know you guys have, like we already heard one, are there stories and milestones that you could look back at, almost like altars, where you kind of look back at and go, man, God showed up in that moment, and it's allowed you to kind of go, yeah, this is just always going to be who we are. Does anything come to mind?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Many.
Yeah.
We have small ones and huge ones.
Love it.
But I would say like our biggest one was and now it seems so long ago. Like we know it was definitely because of like trusting God with our finances, but now it seems forever ago. But whenever we were struggling to get pregnant and we had like used every option we could because we were trying to avoid the one that cost thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars that we in no way could ever afford, ever. And so
I think we were at a point where the natural fertility thing just wasn't going to happen, and we were trying to weigh our options in each, whether it was adoption, whether it was IVF, or this route. Each one of the routes took way more money than we had. You know what I mean? Like, so it was kind of that point where it's like it was a dark time, because it was like we want to do this, but we can't afford it. You know what I mean? Like, there's just not, the money's just not there. And
even like asking family for money, like that wasn't even an option.
Yeah.
And like I think that was like something that like one of our family members like put on the table, like, what if we did like a, we're like, no, it just wasn't even an option. And so I think we sat down and and that was one of those moments where we're like, let's give more and just see.
I mean, I think one, it forced us to become disciplined with our budget, like creating a budget. And like I've told you how we do our money, and as soon as I get paid, it goes in this every Friday, this and that.
Yeah, say that. I know we'll get back to this story real quickly if you can. Just briefly, how do you guys kind of prepare your life to be generous?
Yeah.
What does that look like? That I think it's 30-20-10 or something like that.
Yeah, it's something like 10-10-20. We don't follow that exactly to the T now, but it was just basically
good framework though.
It was a system put in place for us to, have I think we got like 4 or 5 debit cards, right? Mm-hmm. Each of us. One was for bills, one was for one go to savings, and then we'll tithe first, and then savings, and it just, everything would just kind of go into its place, right?
Yeah.
And we were like going to set up automatic tithing, because it was like, this is the point where we're going to like give, and we're going to give every week, and we're going to give this amount, and that's what we're going to do.
And I think it was, I can't remember the numbers because we've changed it since then. Yeah. We've gone up in certain areas and down in certain areas, but and we still stick to it. It's still, tithe goes out every this day, groceries goes into this account, savings into that account, are what we call liquid, which is like, I want to go get my nails done, I use my liquid in that account, and then the general account. So I think it's 4 accounts. And so, it's not an exact percentage, but it was at some point exact percentage. That's how we got it started.
It just forced us to get a hold of, finally, we didn't budget before then. Like, there was no budget. It was like, you get paid, you pay the bills, and then money's gone. It just disappears.
Let's see what happens. Let's just
and then it's like, all right, that's so it just kind of like, all God was weaving it together in a way of teaching us to be disciplined with our money, and then be generous with our money. And he kind of just, and it was like, okay, just to go back into that story, it was like, we don't have the money to do this. Let's give, and see where
what
God,
an interesting, like,
it makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense. But we had been, prophesied over and things like, so like, we felt like it was going to happen.
We knew we had to take a huge step in faith and trust.
Right.
Huge step in faith.
Right.
And so that's where we decided that. And I think the first thing, it was that conference.
It was a conference. I can't remember which one.
Yeah, I remember.
And Scott Tresky was like, hey, I just felt the Lord telling me like it's so random. I'm sorry if this is like weird or out of place. And he's like, I just felt the Lord telling me to give you money. And so that he just gave us, like whatever he had on him. It wasn't even like, it wasn't like thousands of dollars at all, but it was just like whatever he had in his wallet.
Are you sure? Because that's usually what he's carrying around.
Then he did not give it.
Well, I mean, it was confirmation. It was confirmation for us, because it was right at that time where we were like, what are we going to do?
We don't have,
and
that's what he doesn't realize. Like,
right.
He may have been like, this is
we
nothing.
weren't telling
what
anyone.
Am I doing?
Yeah, we weren't telling anyone.
For us,
2 stories of obedience and generosity converging.
Because it was not about the amount that he gave us. It could have been $5 for us, it was God saying, "Go forward.
You're
On the right track."
right. Exactly.
Come on.
Like
So
opening
cool.
up the doors, and it just kept happening like that.
Right.
And I think we even set a date. We're going to the doctor. We're going to get this done. We don't have the money to pay for it, but we're doing it.
Yeah.
And that's where we started seeing God, because whenever like it came down to, and it wasn't like a thing you can pay off. It was like, you got to have
Right.
this amount. And
Yeah.
when we got to
When
the
we
doctor,
were doing Dave Ramsey, we didn't have, we weren't doing credit cards, and everything was just cash.
Yeah,
like what we had
yeah.
is what we were going to use. We weren't going to borrow money. We weren't going to do this.
Yeah. And like, just like going back and thinking about it, even more now, it seems so shocking that when we got to that day, we had the exact, amount we needed. Somehow. I don't know if we've ever had that amount again, but we had the amount. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But we had what
well, hey, you probably just need to give more.
Yeah.
So that's terrible coming from me. That's terrible.
Yeah, but we were able to, do what we needed to do, get it done. And, like, I guess, 3 months later, we were pregnant with Maxwell. So,
yeah.
And we knew, okay, huge testimony of putting your faith and taking a step of faith, but a step of faith in your giving, a step of faith in just trusting God. And he'll open doors, close doors, all the things that you need to do if you just trust him.
I mean, we're telling the highlights of it, but it was very, it was hard. It wasn't easy. It wasn't an easy time for us. It was probably, the hardest time for us, but, I forgot what I was going to say, but it was like complete trust, because I don't even remember how like just seeing them. It just, to me, it felt like we didn't have the money and then we had the money. Like it just there. I don't remember the in between. It was just like, okay, let's put our heads down. Let's do what we got to do, and let's start giving. And then we look up and it's like time to pay, and like boom, we had it, and we didn't borrow from anyone. We didn't. We just had it, and it didn't break us. It didn't. It was just like there, and it was. There's no other way to explain it. And
I think that was like the number one story where no matter what we've been through financially since then, it's like whatever we have to rebudget, we're not touching that. We're not touching God's money. And I think I've even said before, like, should we maybe go down and he's like, no, and then I would talk about, Mom, we got to pay this and that. And what do you think, about maybe like, what if we cut down our tithe and giving a little bit? I wouldn't do that. And it's not because like, it has nothing to do with like, God's gonna, be mad at you or anything like that. Yeah. It's not that. It is just completely like, if you're trusting him in this, then trust him in this.
You started it by saying it's trusting with our life. And I think we tend to separate giving away from all the other things we trust him with. We trust him to pray. We trust him to serve. We trust him to be in our relationships. We trust him in giving. And I understand why, because you can't serve God in money. And so it's hard sometimes, but we kind of separate those. But giving should be another thing we add to the list of places where we reveal, show, exercise our trust, right? And that is and it counterforms you. Again, just going back to that word of like, it shapes you in a very different way. To where now you're going, oh, you know what? We're in a tough spot. Let's give more. I mean, that's crazy talk. And I think sometimes we think the wisdom of God sounds like wisdom of the world, and that's not true. Yeah. The wisdom of God is foolishness to those who don't know him. And I think for us as believers, we've kind of got to look sometimes with our finances, with our prayer life, with other parts of our life. If we're trusting him, we're going to look a little bit foolish. Right? It's going to happen, but he in those moments has always proven to be faithful, and in our foolishness, right, our willingness to be foolish, he is showing himself faithful in big and small ways, like you said. I want to just close with this for you guys, when it has been hard, and maybe you just kind of answered this, so maybe if you just have one more soundbite of advice, but in tough seasons, or when curveballs have come your way, or in a season where you're making a decision, November 13th is coming up and we're in this vision builder season. Like, how do you guys make these decisions about, hey, we're going to stay on it, or we're going to pray and ask the Lord to go above and beyond, whatever? Like, how do you guys do that together? What does that look like for you guys?
I mean, I would say prayer is, it's a starting point,
Yeah.
is sitting down, having the conversation, looking at where we're at, and setting some goals, financial goals, and starting there, and then going, and then, I don't like to think of a number, you know what I mean? Like in my head, I'd rather pray about it and get that number revealed to me. I don't want to be like, well, if I just look at what I'm, I like to just be like, wake up one day and like, oh, there's the number. That's it.
I think every time we like kind of like,
I think I get the number and then I kind of like tweak it a little bit higher is what I like to do.
Yes, definitely. But it's always like opening your Bible and like whatever scripture it lands on. That we really do like that. It's not like, let's look at it, when it's something like vision building or whatever,
right?
Or giving to someone or giving to something. It's always like, okay, what do you think? Like praying about it and then just, what do we feel like God's telling us? And yes, his is always higher.
Mm-hmm. I'd say that's similar to Meredith and I. And I think it's good.
Every couple. There's always one that's higher.
Healthy.
Yeah. It's
There's nothing wrong with that.
The last thing I would say is just like the last soundbite, I guess you could say, is, Jesus talked a lot about money in the Bible. And so I always remember hearing that, like how much he would talk about treasures and he would talk a lot about money. I mean, when it really came down to it. So he knew it was an important thing that we were going to be dealing with now, even back then, even now. So that to me has always been one of those things where it's like, there's a reason why he talked about it so much, because the way we handle money as a society is probably not the best, so like he was speaking on it all the time, and and there's a reason why, because it's still a difficult conversation. It was a difficult conversation back then, but there's a reason why he brought it up. He brought it up because it's important, and it's another way to reveal your faith. And we just have to step back and look at it like not the way the world looks at it. You have to look at it from a different angle. And that's the hardest thing to do. That's really the hardest thing, is for people to get that viewpoint of looking at your money differently. Because we all think, I got to attain as much as I can, and I got to have more than that person and that person.
Yeah, you got to hold up. I got to get mine.
So and that's easy to fall into that. Like that's the world I was in before I had stepped foot in church. It was like, I want to be a millionaire. I don't care about anything else. I just want to be a millionaire. It's like, what is that? What does that even mean? Like it's just it's a different way to look at life in general. And I just think Jesus said it was important, so it's important.
Oh yeah, man, it shapes your heart in so many ways, and shapes your mindset and your worldview. And like you just said, it's a scarcity or an abundance mindset. And which God do you serve? The God that says, hey, forget everybody else, I got to get what I need to get, or the one that says, oh, I'm going to give whatever I need to give, and God's got my back. One way it's dependent on you, and the other way it's dependent on God. And I just want to live the free, overflowing life that comes from depending on God in every area of my life, including my finances. Well, hey, everybody, I'm so glad. I hope you good.
Was it cutting out on your end too?
I think my headphones died.
Okay.
I'm glad
I didn't feel like a monster for a second.
Hey, but if you guys were watching that part and all the rest of it, we're so glad you took time to watch this. I hope it encouraged you, inspired you, made you think bigger. And if you have any questions or any thoughts, please let us know. And if you want any resources, they'll be in the comments below. Whether you want to check out our vision stuff, whether you want to look at some of the giving resources we put online,
more than anything, we want you to be encouraged to take this part of your life and begin to see it become more and more as God's called it to be. And we're so thankful for you. We love you guys. Thank you, Shane and T. You guys are awesome, amazing. That was so good. And for everybody who's seeing this, watching this pre-November 13th, I would really love for you, Merritt and I would love for you to pray over these next several days to really consider what God would have you do in this moment in the season of our community. It's really exciting to see what is already happening and what's about to happen as we kind of kickstart it with something like this. But love you guys. Thank you, Shane and T. Have an awesome evening, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Bye-bye.